accused, but now it's going to be a state.
You told me that 2 months ago. They charged.
Would you all stand while Coach says the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance?
Dear God, again, we thank thee for allowing us to see another blessed day. Forgive us our sins and our shortcomings and make us fit to serve. We thank you for your suffering, dying, shedding blood, remission of our sin, the third day you rose, and all power in your name. We thank you. Thank you for those who have come tonight, Lord, seeking our help. We ask to let the Holy Spirit dwell in this meeting tonight. We ask the blessings upon this board and also this staff. And we pray for those who come seeking our help, that the Holy Spirit guide and lead us that we might do that which is pleasing in our sight. This we offer today in our prayer. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
Stephanie, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Latricia Cobb. Here. Mr. Keith DeBrock.
Here.
Ms. Janelle Hyatt. Here. Mr. Art Little is absent. Mr. Jake Porche.
Here.
Mr. Kirk Smith.
Here.
Mr. Carl Vincent.
Here.
Mr. Osal Williams.
Here.
Ms. Dion Winey.
Here.
Vice Chair Sharon Galicia.
Here.
Chair Julia Dickerson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
This is an 11-member board. It will take a majority of those members present to grant or deny any request heard tonight. The chair will refrain from voting unless the vote might affect the outcome. The meeting will be conducted with me reading the request from the agenda. The planning staff will give a presentation and report their recommendations. If the applicant would like to add to the staff's presentation, or if someone from the audience has comments, please come to the microphone and state your name, address, and the nature of your request. All persons wishing to speak other than the applicants need to fill out a blue request to appear form located in the back of this room. The form must be given to a staff member prior to the reading of the item agenda. As required by this board's bylaws, in all cases, the proponents will be limited to 10 minutes, and the opponents will be granted 10 minutes as well, with each speaker allowed no more than 3 minutes. I recommend that a spokesperson be selected if there's a large group wanting to speak on the same agenda item. If 4 or more speaker request forms are submitted, the time allowed for individual speakers will be limited based upon the number of forms submitted. The chair has the right to limit speakers who present redundant information or personal attacks. In unique situations, the chair may extend or the board may vote to extend time allotted for speakers. After the discussion, the board will vote on each request. I will announce the decision of the board after the vote. The variance and exceptions are final tonight. The zoning case will go before the police jury on Thursday, November the 21st, 2024. This meeting is being filmed by the Calcasieu Parish Government Channel and can be viewed on Wednesday and Thursday following the meeting. For additional run dates, click the website at calcasieu.gov. Channel 5 in Lake Charles, Sulphur, Moss Bluff, Westlake, Vinton, DeQuincy, and Gillis. Channel 99 in Carlos and Grand Lake. Please either turn off or silence electronic devices at this time. Take appropriate action to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of October the 15th, 2024, Planning and Zoning meeting. I'll entertain a motion for approval. Ms. Cobb made the motion and Ms. Hyatt seconded the motion. The minutes approved. First item on the agenda is 6A, variances. Take appropriate action on the following application, 3391 OJ Road in Ward 3. A variance to allow 2 dwellings on one lot with less than required public road frontage. Required 250 feet, requesting 218.5 feet. And with less than required lot square footage, required 32,000 square feet, and they're requesting 11,671.5 square feet. The applicant, Gibson Smith, ETUX, variance 1024-0254. Mrs. Tunn.
This property is located in Lake Charles on Auger Road. The applicant owns a 1/4 acre of land and would like to place 2 homes on this property with less than required public road frontage and with less than required lot square footage. Because the development is consistent with the character of the area, the staff recommends the request be granted with the following conditions. That the development adhere to the site plan on file with the Division of Planning and Development, provided that the director or designee may authorize adjustments to the site plan in light of technical or engineering considerations discovered during development, and that permitting is subject to sewer approval from Louisiana Department of Health and Sanitation Department.
Thank you, Ms. Tunn. If the applicant is present and would like to speak, please come to the podium at this time. Please state your name and address for the record.
Madam Chair, do we have a motion and a second yet?
Oh. Sir?
Do we have a motion and a second? We need a motion.
Oh. A motion. Okay. Sharon, motion. I'm sorry. and thank you. I lost you. Ms. Cobb, I'm so sorry, Ms. Cobb. Ms.
Can you
Galicia
get
made the
past
motion
there?
and Ms. Cobb seconded. Sorry about that, Ms. Cobb.
I'm hard of hearing.
Okay.
Come on, Wes. Lock me out and then say, you can't do that.
I think it goes down.
Yeah.
I guess so.
It's easier to get in jail.
Oh, look, right there.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Okay. My name is Gibson Smith. Address is 3875 Haymark Road, Lake Charles,
Thank you so much.
70605.
Thank you. Do you,
Okay.
okay, thank you. At this time, we do have a blue card. Robert Whalen, if you're present, we have one blue card. Robert Whalen. If you don't mind, could you make your way to the podium? And sir, if you don't mind, could you just maybe stand up against the wall or move over to the side? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Robert Whalen. My address is 3319 Julia Street.
Yes, sir.
And I have three, I think, very important comments that need addressing. When we built our house and all the other people, we had to have 16,250 square feet. And of course, just about every one of us has that and more. That's why I'm surprised, because this lot is so small. It's 11,671 square feet. So that's one contention. I'm thinking if I'd have known this before, I don't know if I'd have built out there, but that's the one thing I have a problem with. And Ms. Kimberly with the Planning Commission, we looked to see if there are similar places like this, and we couldn't find any except one, which had 2 homes on it, and it was 20,829 feet. So what's requesting here is less than half of what this is. So I was really surprised to see that. And the second thing that we have a comment about is when they have these homes, they have more 2 or 3 cars per home, and a lot of times there's only one driveway or one parking spot, and so a lot of these cars end up parking on the road. And Julia Street is a dead-end road, and there's only one way in and one way out, and it's not a very wide road. And as a matter of fact, the garbage truck that comes every Monday made the comment, that he has trouble backing up on that road because there are some cars that park on the side. So that is a concern, and especially when everybody has to go, through this intersection. And the third concern I have is the flooding. Y'all did some good work installing some drainage at the cemetery, which is wonderful, but that road still floods at the end where the cemetery is and the middle when we have some high rainfall. And with this such a small lot and these houses, and if they have 1 or 2 car pads, and I know you're gonna have to have a 500-gallon or 800-gallon septic tank with 60 feet of field lines, is going to take up all that yard. It's not going to be anything. That yard's not going to absorb hardly anything. So everything's going to go into the neighbor's yard. The runoff's going to go in the neighbor's yard or into the dishes, and will fill up much quicker. So I'm concerned about the flooding issue. And in conclusion, I just thank you for letting me express my views. But I didn't think they could build 2 houses on such a small piece of property, especially since we were all required to build or have a 16,250 square feet. Of course, I have more, but for us to even get started. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Whalen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gibson, would you like to make your way back to the podium, and if you'd like to address any of his comments?
I can't remember all the numbers. I had 2 heart attacks 3 years ago. My clutch slips a little bit. Trying to go forward with what we got.
Sure. Board members, do you have any comments or any questions for Mr. Gibson this time? Yes, sir, Mr. Porche.
Just wanted to reference that in 2016, we did, looks like we did approve to decrease on 5217 OJ Road from required 7,500 square feet, and they requested 6,600, which is a substantially smaller lot, and we did approve that in 16. Also, if you look on Copper Ridge, you know, there's some much smaller lot sizes there. I feel like the request is reasonable and matches the density character, which is pretty much mixed density, bigger lots, smaller lots in the area.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Porche. Any other comments or questions by the board?
Question for the staff. Are there some
Commissioner?
duplexes right there as well?
There are some duplexes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Stephanie, roll call vote, please.
Mr. LaSalle Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Winey?
Yes.
Ms. Galicia?
Yes.
Ms. Cobb? Mr. DeBrock?
Yes.
Ms. Hyatt? Mr. Porche?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
No.
8 in favor, 1 against.
Okay, motion passes. At this time, we will first hear item 8A and move item 7A to the end of the agenda. And before and I have just a little comment I'd like to read to you. Before receiving any public comments, I note that this board has received and reviewed considerable information from numerous persons on this project. The board members have devoted considerable time and effort to the application. The board is now ready to receive public comment, but I am reminding everyone that disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. This board wants to hear from all speakers, and I expect that everyone will be courteous and respectful. Excuse me. I am reading this before the, but I'm going to go ahead and read it. Respectful throughout the process. Everyone must refrain from interrupting speakers, refrain from personal attacks, and refrain from conduct that might disrupt the proceedings. This includes hissing, booing, clapping, comments from the audience. For the persons that will be speaking, you will be limited to 2 minutes to express your comments in favor or opposition of the project. Again, you must refrain from personal attacks and discourteous behavior. You must also direct all comments to the board and not to other persons. And when your time has concluded, you must return to the audience. For the board, I ask that you hold all questions and comments until speakers from both sides have concluded their remarks. And this is actually for 7A when we get to it. But right now, we are going to go ahead and move to 8A so that we can get this item out of the way. So take appropriate action to the following application, 3244 Highway 171 North in Ward 1, to rezone from agricultural A1 to central business commercial C3, to allow commercial development, office, and storage. The applicant is Advantage Plumbing, LLC, RZ 09240281.
You need to entertain a motion to approve with conditions.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so spoiled. I've received some information, and it's not on any of my information, so I keep missing that. So I'll entertain a motion to, thank you, Ms. Galicia and Mr. Porche seconded it. Ms. Dunn?
This property is in Moss Bluff on Highway 171 North. Should the board grant the request, the applicant intends to construct a 5,400 square foot building. The new building will include an office and storage area for an existing plumbing business. Because the development is consistent with the character of the area, the staff recommends the request be granted with the following conditions: that the development adhere to the site plan on file with the Division of Planning and Development, provided that the director or designee may authorize adjustments to the site plan in light of technical or engineering considerations discovered during development, that a runoff management plan will be required unless appropriate waiver is granted by the Division of Engineering, that all exterior lighting must be oriented inward toward the development and the light source cannot be visible to the adjacent properties, that all outdoor storage is prohibited, and that the development must adhere to the corridor overlay district regulations as per Division 5 of the Parish Code of Ordinances.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. If the applicant is present, would like to speak, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
If y'all have any questions for me.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Jason Fontenot, 1424 Sue Ann Drive,
Okay.
70611.
Thank you. Board, do y'all have any questions for Mr. Fontenot? No. Yep.
Great.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I see.
We do not have any opposition on this item, so all in favor state aye.
Aye.
All opposed state nay. Motion passes. Okay. Now we're going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is exception 7A. Take appropriate action on the following application: the 2300 block of Paul Bellon Road, 3000 block of Goss Road, 4000 block of John Kuntz Road, and the 2000 block of Bird Nest Road, the 3000 block of Topsy Road, and 4261 Topsy Road in Ward 1. Exception is to allow industrial development, a solar energy facility. The applicant is American Sulfur and Oil Company of Louisiana, LLC, ETAL, EX 07240205. I'll entertain a motion for approval. Ms. Cobb made the motion, and Mrs. Winey seconded. Ms. Dunn.
This case was deferred at the August 20th meeting. This property is northeast of Moss Bluff and in the Topsy area, which encompasses a total of 3,656 acres. The applicant is requesting a zoning exception to allow a solar energy facility. Because minimal impacts are to be expected, the staff recommends the request be granted with the following conditions: that the development adhere to the site plan on file with the Division of Planning and Development, provided that the director or designee may authorize adjustments to the site plan in light of technical or engineering considerations discovered during development, and that the development must adhere to the solar energy facilities regulations as per Section 2699 of the Parish Code of Ordinances.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. And at this time, if the applicant is present and would like to speak, please make your way to the podium.
And Madam Chair, if I may, as the applicant makes his way to the podium, prior to the meeting, I was able to meet with everyone who filled out blue cards, proponents side and the opposition side. We agreed for orderly presentation of their cases. You've got noted on how many minutes each speaker will have. The applicant is going to speak now, is reserving 1 to 2 minutes for rebuttal. I will keep all the time, and I'll let you know when that occurs, okay?
Thank you so kindly. So if the applicant at this time would like to speak, you may come to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, everyone. Scott Helms for American Sulfur and Oil, 823 Moss Street in Lake Charles. I'd like to thank everybody for considering the application tonight. The American Sulfur and Oil Company and the Nolan family have been a proud part of Calcasieu Parish for over a century, constantly working to support our community through contributions of millions of dollars to McNeese State University, our hospitals, our schools, our libraries, churches, and more. The McNeese students here tonight wearing the yellow t-shirts for solar power. That represents just a fraction of the scholarships that we offer from this company based on the benefit and the profits generated from the property. The land in question is in fact a tree farm. The trees are mature and they'll be cut whether this project proceeds or not. They're going to be cut. Whenever we consider a project, we evaluate not only that they benefit our company, but also how the project will impact our neighbors, our parish, and our state. And after careful consideration of multiple proposals, we were proud to support the Cajun Crescent Energy Center. This project will preserve over half the land and wildlife and agriculture. You won't see it, you won't hear it, and you won't smell it, and it exceeds the parish's standards that they've asked for, and then some. Some of the other projects that are already approved for this zoning that we could consider if this doesn't go through is community homes, duplexes, modular homes, oil and gas pump transfer stations, single unit manufacturing homes, solid waste sites. These are other options. Private property rights are fundamental to our freedom. We ask for your support to develop this land responsibly and build a brighter future for our community. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Forrester from IPA to continue the presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for the introduction, Scott. Is it possible to get it quicker? Okay. All right. Hi, my name is Forrest. I'm speaking for the applicant. Our business address is 11801 Domain Boulevard, Austin, Texas. Let me start off with a sincere and deep thank you to every one of you on the Planning and Zoning Board. I know this case has been a lot, and you've really invested yourselves learning more about the project, talking to us, talking to folks from the community, reading materials, taking calls. We really appreciate your time. We know you got lives outside of planning and zoning, and so it means a lot for your engagement here. And we thank the staff on that as well. Back in August, y'all asked us to take the next 3 months to meet with the community, and we heard you. We are grateful for that opportunity to listen and to learn. And today's presentation is guided by the information that we gained from those engagements, whether that was in person, on phone, or through our website. I'm going to try and click to the next slide here. The main question people ask is, hey, why here? What are y'all doing here? And the answer to that is actually pretty simple. It's a matter of supply and demand. Local businesses, names like y'all recognize, Sasol, Lyondell, even Walmart, they're asking for clean power. They want clean power. They're asking Entergy to get it for them. And Entergy right now has a request for 3,000 megawatts of solar power. And that's a request that's been blessed by the Louisiana Public Service Commission. And our project is one of the very few projects that can respond to that need. The other question people ask is, hey, why does it have to be right here? Why right here? And look, this takes a lot of criteria to develop a project like this. You gotta check a lot of boxes. It's gotta be far enough inland. It's gotta be high enough. It's gotta be near high voltage lines that can take the power. And there's many other boxes that we've got to check. And this is one of the very few sites in Southwest Louisiana that works for this project. Try to get down here. Look, it's not just industry that benefits from this. The bottom line is that it's a great opportunity for the broader community as well. Yes, the local businesses that need the clean power want that, but it's a proven technology. Neighboring Gulf Coast states like Texas and Florida, they're number 2 and number 3 respectively in installed solar projects. Combined, they've got over 50,000 megawatts of solar installed. That's the equivalent to about 150 of the projects that we're proposing here today. Louisiana is an energy leader in oil and gas, and we want to help Louisiana stay a leader in all forms of energy. There's a lot of money at stake here. There's nearly $500 million we want to invest in Calcasieu Parish and in Jeff Davis Parish. It's the biggest project to come to the area in the last 5 years. And in turn, it's going to contribute a lot of taxes, $87 million in incremental taxes that go to schools, that go to safety, that go to the community. $9 million of that is up front going to Calcasieu Parish. And if you want to get real deep in the weeds, break it down, causes like Moss Bluff Fire Department are going to get $200,000 a year in property tax from us. Jobs is another important factor. And as a company, we always prioritize hiring locally. Our surveying team, they're from here. Our high voltage engineer, their office is just down the street. And we're talking to Louisiana construction companies right here to build the project. Beyond that, we also prioritize the local workforce. And we're working with Soella to develop an apprenticeship program so that we can hire 45 to 55 apprentices, get their foot in the door to new high-paying, high-skilled jobs working with this project. Finally, it's thoughtfully sited. And it's designed in a way to protect the nearby community and to protect its rural character. excuse me with the layup, thank you. Look, through our community engagement, we learned that a lot of people think, look, it's for 4,000 acre parking lot. And like, that's not true. It's of the 4,000 acres, half the site, 2,000 acres, all the purple in that map up there, all that's gonna be continued in agriculture and wildlife. And so our plan actually locks in 2,000 acres in the rustic nature that folks in this room care very deeply about. You know, what about that solar farm? What does it actually look like? Well, there's two of our guys next to some solar panels. It's not that tall. There's grass underneath the whole thing. And that photo number 2 up there, top right, that's rows of solar panels, and they blend into the farmland. And you know, it might be hard to tell the difference, and that's kind of the point. It's not an industrial development. Here's a couple more pictures. This is an active solar farm, and those trees there, in photo number 5 on the right, that's 50-foot thick of trees, and behind those trees is a bunch of solar panels. And the thing is, you can't see the solar panels behind those trees. And if you can't see the solar panels behind 50 feet of trees, you're not gonna see solar panels behind 150 feet of trees or more. The other, look, our design is consistent with all parish regulations, but we didn't just stop at the regulations. We went above and beyond that based on the engagement we had with the community. We met with neighbors around the site, starting all the way back in May of this year at Gillis Elementary. They told us they don't want to see it, they don't want to hear it. We said, okay. We worked with our environmental folks, we worked with our engineers, we pulled all the equipment back that we could and still hit the total capacity. So now, in the design that planning and zoning has reviewed, there are 0 homes within 300 feet of a solar panel. It's 0 homes within 300 feet of a solar panel. And in many cases, there's a football field worth of trees or more in between the homes and our equipment. Okay. Wildlife, next slide please. The wildlife is also a very important consideration. So we respect the state as a sportsman's paradise, and as a result, we divided the solar farm into smaller chunks. And between those chunks, there's big, wide wildlife corridors so that animals can get through the entire project unobstructed. Finally, the last slide, please. Look, we understand there's a lot of questions. We covered as many as we could here, and here's a quick rundown of the other topics that keep coming up. Construction. We're building to hurricane quality standards. This equipment's proven to work in places that have more extreme weather than even Louisiana. Material safety. Our panels are certified as non-hazardous by the EPA. Even if they break, they're non-hazardous. Decommissioning funds. We're putting money in place with the parish and with our landowners to make sure that if anything happens, that money's there to clean up the project. It complies with all the drainage requirements. And then finally, and this is a big topic here, is property values. We had a national appraiser do a site-specific study, and they found that there is no negative impact on the neighbors with the setbacks and the landscape buffers required by the ordinance. And we also heard the community, they don't believe just any licensed Louisiana appraisers. So we got a well-respected local appraiser who also got the president of the Louisiana Appraisal Society to review that report, and they found that those findings are true and correct. There are no negative impact on our neighbors. All the topics we talked about today, we got experts who are in the room, some of them still might be outside. And they've done the work and they can answer any questions you've had. So in summary, largest employer in town here, they're asking for clean power. We're one of the few projects that can meet that need. $87 million in new taxes, direct and indirect jobs. And we're not your typical industry. You can't see it, you can't hear it, you can't smell it. This project has been thoughtfully designed to go above and beyond the parish standards, and that's why the planning and zoning staff has recommended you approve it this evening. And I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Forrester. At this time, we have several cards, and yes, sir.
Madam Chair, I was given a request to have perhaps one speaker with a valid reason to go first. Anna Dennison is on your list as speaking for proponents.
Yes, sir.
There's been a request. It's up to you whether to grant
Yes,
it or not.
that's fine, that's
Okay.
fine. We have several blue cards for, and at this time, if Miss Anna Dennison would make your way to the front.
And just as a reminder, Madam Chair, the proponent speakers will each have 2 minutes.
Yes, sir.
And then when we get to the opponents, I'll run that down with you.
Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Dennison?
Hello, how are
you
you?
doing? Doing good.
Hey, I'm here. I'm the Director of Alternative Energy for Suela. We've been talking to these guys for a few months. When they came and approached us, they approached us with a question of, can we do some apprenticeship programs? Well, in my role, we always look for new jobs, for new, like our students need jobs. We tried to get people out of food stamps to put them to work. So we thought this was a great idea. When I started, I'm not an engineer, I'm not an expert on alternative energy, but that's my role now. So I've been studying it, and there's still a lot that I have to learn, but we've been supporting it. We've been trying to create new curriculum for all these, for solar, for carbon capture, because we want to be ready. We hear this is coming. It's in Texas now. Texas is leading the alternative energy. They're just our next door neighbors, so we're a little late, but hopefully we can get through that soon.
Okay.
And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Ms. Dennison. But before you leave, do you
Sure.
mind stating your address for us as well?
Sure. Sana Dennison. My address at school is 3820 Senator Bennett Johnson.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Okay. The next blue card is Jesse Bellard. And this is, if you don't mind, state your name and address for the record.
And again, as a reminder, 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. 2 minutes.
Jesse Bellard, Parish President, St. Andrew Parish. I was asked to come and speak on behalf of the project and what we have in our parish. We started this about 3 years ago, and it was brand new to us. So we had to do our research, and we learned a lot through the process. What I did learn is that a lot of the neighbors did file complaints and did come to us and say they didn't want it next to them. We don't have zoning, so it was a no-brainer. We had no choice. But now that one of the projects is up and running, the neighbors have come around and said, well, first of all, they came and see it. We make them plant trees, put fences, and pretty much take it and move it away from where they're at right now. But the problem is, from the road coming in, people didn't know what to expect. We didn't know what to expect. But economically, for our parish, is a great deal. I mean, the landowners, the farmers, I was worried about the farmers complaining. The farmers were 100% behind it. We have 2 projects going on right now. We have a third one coming in, and we have 2 wind farms coming in. And my biggest worry was the farming. I have cattle, I do hay, I do crawfish, I do a little bit of everything, and farming is very close to me, but you cannot net money per acre like you can with solar or wind. So these farmers were happy to do it. It doesn't take a whole lot of land for the farmers. And like I said, economically for the parish of St. Landry, property values did go up. You go from farmland to commercial property. So that's a big plus. The companies pay the extra taxes that's needed for the landowners, so that's another plus. But the property value actually came up near and around the solar farm. So the complaint initially came across that our property values are going to drop. It went the exact opposite. Property values went up. And again, the trees are growing, the fences are up, the solar farm is in the back, and you don't know it's there. At least for the next 30 years, that location right there is going to have that. They're going to have solar.
Thank you, Mr. Bellard. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it. The next person is George Swift. George Swift. Okay. Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
All right, I'll be glad to.
Thank you.
I'm George Swift of the Southwest Louisiana Economic Development Alliance, and we appreciate your service and the opportunity to be here tonight. This project is a real crucial step toward addressing the growing demand for solar energy that we have from our local industries. And utilities are pursuing this type of power because the local industries are actually requesting it. And this is not speculative. It's consistently we hear from other industries that they, whether they're new to Southwest Louisiana or existing industries wanting to expand, that they need this kind of green energy. And simply put, our major employers require this option to remain competitive in a global marketplace. Energy is essential for our economy, and without the right mix of energy products, businesses cannot thrive or expand. And at the Southwest Louisiana Economic Development Alliance, we strongly support this project. It complements our existing energy sources and aligns with our mission to foster economic growth, improve the quality of life, and ensure the long-term prosperity of our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swift, very much.
Next time I'll get a solar panel.
Dr. Terry Chambers, if you don't mind making your way to the podium and state your name and address for the record, sir. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Terry Chambers. My address is 110 Shoston Boulevard, Lafayette, Louisiana. I'm the Endowed Chair of Mechanical Engineering and Director of the Louisiana Solar Energy Lab at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. I have no connection whatsoever to this project. I'm only here to speak about the health and safety issues surrounding solar energy. And what I can say as a registered professional engineer who is an expert in this field is that when designed and implemented according to all applicable codes and standards and industry best practices, there are no negative health and safety impacts regarding solar energy projects. I'm available to answer any other questions or go into more detail on sound or runoff or EMF radiation or anything else. I also have a couple of reports that I've written. If appropriate, I'd be happy to submit them for the record. They address most of those health and safety impacts.
Thank you, Dr. Chambers. You can pass it down and we'll
Okay.
move it down. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Gabb, at this time, we have the four blue
And you
cards.
can, and you can call the first one up, and
Okay.
as he or she makes his way up,
Okay.
the opponents, the opposition speakers, have kind of designated themselves as spokespersons for a number of other persons, so we're giving them a little more time to speak. They each have 4 minutes.
Yes, sir. Okay, the first person is Chancey Plaisant. Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Chancey Plaisant, 4094 Topsy Road.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go quick. I want to thank y'all for taking time to hear our voices and concerns on this project. The community is counting on a no vote from y'all on this project. So now I want to talk about the petition. What's the magic number on a petition? We have approximately 700 signatures. I'm aware some signatures 1,700. I'm aware some signatures are from out of town. We were told that these people, these family, or they have property or family that's being affected in that area. Can I ask y'all a question? Did y'all receive Darby Quinn's email
Yes,
of
sir.
opposition?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Mike Smith gave us his permission to use. He's opposed of it too. And I'd like to defer my time to Tommy Buckner.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
Tommy, thank you, Mr. Plaisant. Tommy Buckner, you're the next person on the blue card. There's two. Please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Tommy Buckner. I live at 2776 Topsy Road in Moss Bluff. Now, I'm not a public speaker, so forgive my nerves. But again, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to let me speak to you tonight. I've written a statement so that I don't miss any points. I want to make sure that the board understands that I nor most of the people that are here today do not stand against economic development. That's not the case at all. The reason myself and hundreds of others have gathered tonight is to make sure our voice is heard. That's the same reason around 1,700 people signed a petition in opposition to this proposal. When the citizens in the area saw the orange signs go up for the most This was the first time they learned of the proposed project. After meeting with the police steers that represent the area, while they opposed the project, they let us know that unfortunately, due to the ordinance change that happened on December 1st of 2022, there was no elected representation to represent us tonight. They said that we would have to take our case to you personally. So that's why we're here. This left the people facing a major decision without elected voice to state our claim. As stated, the intent of the opposition is not anti-solar, it's anti-placement. This project, without a doubt, is an industrial energy production facility, and it belongs in an industrial area. It does not belong in a rural community. The presenting group has introduced a study from North Carolina stating that these types of projects have absolutely no bearing on the surrounding landowners or their property values. The Louisiana legislature, who is currently drafting their own regulations on these types of projects, sought the advice of a local source, and on this asked the Louisiana State University conduct a study on this matter. Dr. Greg Upton is the executive director and associate research professor at Louisiana State University Center for Energy Studies. Dr. Upton's studies, which was sent to you, and I have copies if you would like, contradicts what is presented. His findings state that homes in areas of industrial solar production facilities are indeed diminished, especially when in rural areas, because they are not characteristically the same. Dr. Upton is not anti-solar advocate. He simply produced a study requested by the Louisiana legislature that they will use in the compilation of their rules and regulations that they are currently drafting for the solar industry for these types of projects. In his determination, homes in rural areas are reduced in value of significant margins, upwards of 5.8%. Again, our stance on this project, if they're going to be built, then let's put them in industrial areas that are meant for energy production, not rural communities. Everyone in this area has to acknowledge the importance of energy production. We've heard it tonight in this room. Another major objection, and it is vital to this economy, but another major objection to this is the scale and its benefits. No one can question that this project will bring revenue to the area, but does the magnitude of the project warrant the acceptance? This will occupy almost 4,000 acres. That's roughly the same size as Westlake, Louisiana. And in permanent jobs, not construction jobs, it will produce less than 10. My understanding is it'll be around 3. By comparison, for other projects that have been granted industrial tax exemptions, this is in no way close. Phillips 66 occupies roughly 700 acres. It brings about 730 jobs. Sasol and Westlake and its joint ventures occupy roughly 1,200 acres and brings 1,250 jobs. Entergy, the company that we spoke about tonight, in Westlake, has a power production facility, and then their new unit that they just produced, it sits on roughly 100 acres, employs about 30 people, and it produces 994 megawatts of power. The project that is proposed does not have direct benefits to the landowners surrounding. It diminishes the property values, and that's the concern tonight. And if you're going to consider the revenue that it will bring to the parish, please consider also that you have to acknowledge the diminished value to the homes around it, as per the report that we produced by Dr. Greg Upton. I've been in this room before and listened to this board reject the use of multiple mobile homes on properties and multiple residences on properties because it's not characteristic with the area. I would ask for you to apply the same rules to this. My position is like most everyone that I've in here that's voiced opposition. I've been working since I was 12 years old. I started cutting grass, digging ditches, doing whatever I could to make a dollar. I've been working hard my entire life to create a living for my family and to construct the home that my family has dreamed of. I own a little over 8 acres on Topsy Road and completed the construction of my home about 1.5 years ago. I dreamed of building that home in an area that was rural. This is no doubt a gut punch to think that after completing this just 1.5 years ago, I could be potentially facing that diminished value.
Mr. Buckner, your time is up, but you could finish one more last thought.
Yes, ma'am. Can I leave you with 2 questions?
Sure.
One, first, do you believe that this project will have a 0 impact based on the reports? And then secondly, do you feel like this would be appropriate in your neighborhood?
Thank you,
Thank you for
Mr.
your time.
Buckner. Appreciate your comments. Okay. The next person is Tommy Cryer. Mr. Cryer, just a reminder, you have
Yeah,
4.
Tommy Cryer at 3883 Deer Run Road.
Thank you.
When we first learned about the solar, industrial solar complex coming to our neighborhoods, we formed a small group and reached out to our state representatives for help, only to find that many of the state representatives were already aware of our concerns. They had been hearing these same concerns from people across the state. At the zoning hearing on the 20th, the board asked APA to engage with the public and address their concerns. On September 11th, APA held a meeting with our group, and before the meeting, we made it clear that we couldn't make any deals for the public. We couldn't speak on behalf of the public, but we could bring feedback to them. During the meeting, APA presented their proposal, and we outlined our concerns. They said that they would consider our feedback and follow up. We also asked if APA would hold a community-wide meeting, and they agreed to that. We offered to attend the meeting to help things go smoothly and stated that Darby Quinn could help organize it. On October 11th, APA sent a text directing us to a website for feedback. However, the information that was posted online was exactly what was presented to us on September the 11th. No updates, no changes. Our concerns remain unaddressed, and APA still had not held a community-wide meeting. In the meantime, our small group attended a joint committee hearing in Baton Rouge where several folks testified before the Agriculture and Department of Energy and Natural Resources committees. It was clear that the committee members were concerned about the impact of solar development on residential and agricultural lands. Following the hearing, the Louisiana Department of Energy and Natural Resources sent a letter to local parishes urging them to delay approval of any new solar projects until after new rules have been enacted. The letter noted that during the 2025 legislative session, the state will establish minimum standards for issues such as wildlife protection, site selection, and setbacks, with additional regulations to follow. Given these forthcoming rules, we, the citizens of Moss Bluff, believe that we are entitled to the same protections that our fellow Louisianans will enjoy in just a few months. As far as an impact of this type of development, no other industry leaves this big of a footprint, destroys this much wildlife habitat, and creates so few permanent jobs, 2 or 3 jobs, while also reducing the value of their neighbors' properties. And as far as the character, you can't bring an industrial project into our neighborhoods that we provided proof to y'all that it significantly reduces the values of our homes and then say it won't change the character of the area. These two things can't both be true. If you were facing a project in your neighborhood that would devalue your property and that of your neighbors, I believe you would take similar steps to ours to protect your interest. And if you needed help, we would be there for you, just as we are here for our community. With the Louisiana legislature and DNR set to pass new laws and regulations in 2025 session, we, the citizens of Moss Bluff, ask that you vote no and allow us the same protections that will soon be available to communities all across the state. I would like to just comment on a couple of the things that were said tonight. I don't think you're going to find any documentation on property values going up because a solar company came into it.
And Mr.
And I
Crichton,
don't think that information was provided.
your time is up, but you can
Okay.
finish your last thought, please.
Okay.
Please.
And Entergy, as far as getting supply, just to let you know, I'm on the board of BCI, but I'm not speaking for BCI. But I'll just tell you this, we don't have solar. We have industrial customers. We don't have solar in our portfolio for our 2025 contract. Entergy, if they really want solar, they can get that from anywhere in the MISO footprint. So they can buy that from across state into Mississippi, and I forget how far it goes. They don't have to get it from Topsy. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. If y'all have any questions, you can call me back up, and I'll thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Yes, sir. And the last blue card is for Brett Guyman. If you don't mind, please come to the podium. State your name and address for the record.
Brett Guyman, 2615 Bushnell Road in Lake Charles, Moss Bluff.
Thank
So
you.
I'm here this evening for general comments. I want to be clear on that up front. And I thought we were dealing with controversy in Baton Rouge. You guys, I admire you for this. I don't wish this job on anybody, to be honest with you. So, but we appreciate your service to this. And
Thank you.
I'm here in a unique situation. One is that I am the chairman in my existing role in the legislature. I am the chairman of the Natural Resources Committee, which oversees Department of Energy and Natural Resources and Wildlife and Fisheries, which both apply to this conversation. Can we put that chart back up that was up at the very end of the last of Forrest when he was speaking of the different? So,
Yes, sir. I think they're working on
to
it.
give, yes, that one.
Yeah.
To give you a little history on, Dr. Chambers came up and we had an 8.5 hour, maybe it was 8 hours and 45-minute hearing on solar. Our goal in the legislature is to get it right. We studied carbon capture and sequestration last session, very controversial as well, and we lead the nation in the model on how that process works. It takes a lot of work. Takes a lot of collaboration between the two sides, and that's what we're doing on solar. I'm here tonight to remind you that someone mentioned the letter that DENR sent out. Rules on decommissioning are still being promulgated. It means those rules are not in place yet, and the statute clearly says that you shall get a permit from DENR. Now, does that mean you can't move forward with zoning? That would be one of the legal folks would have to answer that question. Our advice to anyone who emails our committee is tap the brakes. Let's let these rules get in place. And the legislature in 2025 spring session, which is coming up, we will be doing a solar package. I am the author of that package, and we will be working very hard to make sure that we get it right. A few things, I know I'm quick on time, so I'm trying to talk fast. A few things up here that I want to make sure I cover. Wildlife and Fisheries, again, we oversee the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, our committee does. I was with them today for 1 hour on another issue. We got off on solar, not for this meeting, but for another issue that had arisen. We will absolutely put wildlife and fishery in the new set of rules. They will have to be an arm of the permit process. So not only will you have to consult with wildlife and fisheries, you will also have to mitigate whatever they find. If it's a species that is in danger, if it's a tree, if it's a plant, whatever that may be, that's going to be part of the permitting process. And by the way, while I'm thinking about it, I want to compliment Calcasieu Parish because we are ahead, really, of anybody in the state with our zoning, with our ordinances on solar. Most parishes have nothing. I think the gentleman with Jeff Davis said they don't even have one. So congratulations to the hard work that's been done here. I would politely suggest that what the state comes up with is going to be a little more far-reaching than what the parish currently has. So that would be another concern of mine. Property values, I think, have been covered. Dr. Chambers actually was in our 8.5 hour hearing, along with Dr. Upton, and his name was mentioned as well. We will be proposing a compensation package for these projects as they come to our state. If you're going to be within a certain radius of a home, we're going to want to have some sort of a compensation package that is considered for that project. What was the other one I wanted to talk about? ITEP. I heard ITEP being mentioned. I'm not speaking for the Division of Administration and the governor at all, but this is their idea. And ITEP, we believe that one of the proposals we would do, and now whether it passes the legislature or not, I cannot guarantee, but the idea came from the administration that ITEP, that's your industrial tax exemption, that these projects get, will only be allowed if they're purchasing domestic panels. And the good news is we have a facility in Dr. Chambers' area in New Iberia that is going to be manufacturing those panels as well. But ITEP could go away and not even be available for some of these projects. We understand, George Swift spoke earlier about the need for solar. We totally understand that. The balance is, and another gentleman talked about property rights. We totally understand that too. It's the balance between your property rights and the rights of the people who live around you. Our role in the legislature is to represent people. But we want to be pro-industry, but we represent people. And you have to consider that when these projects come. It can't just be about tax revenue for however extended period of time. It needs to be a really, really thought out process. And I'm just here to tell you that we are working on that. We're working very hard to get it right. Our goal is to be the leader in the nation on solar regulations as far as minimum standards and to make sure that we are setting the bar for every other state. And we should have that done in the spring. So you'll have your rules on decommissioning, which is very important, and also your rules on how you move forward in the zoning that would apply. And I'm here, I'll stay for any questions later if you have any. And again, I appreciate what you all are doing. I mean, I really, really do. And thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Guyman. And I would just like to take a moment to thank the audience for allowing both sides to speak, whether you're for it or against it. I appreciate you very much. Y'all have been very respectful, and for that, I do thank you. And then I do want to take a moment to thank our board for being so patient, because I know you have probably questions that you want to ask, and it's probably been challenging for you to wait to ask those questions, but I do appreciate you allowing both sides to speak as well. So, Mr. Gabb.
Madam Chair, I have one
Yes, sir.
monkey wrench to throw into this. We did receive 2 blue cards for speakers in opposition. They came in after you read the agenda item, so by your rules, they are untimely. It is up to you whether to allow these speakers or not. Again, they were submitted untimely.
And there are 2 in opposition.
There are 2 in opposition.
Um,
It is your discretion or the board's discretion.
I'm fine, just so that we can make sure that everyone's voice has been heard in this case. But at the same time, I mean, we're talking like a minute or 2.
Then what I would suggest, 90 seconds for each.
That's fine.
And also maybe extend the time the applicant who exhausted his time, maybe to allow him a 1-minute rebuttal.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The first speaker is Kara Hines.
Kara Kynes?
Hines,
Hines, excuse me.
Hines. It'll be 90 seconds.
Okay. Miss, you have, please state your name and address for the record, and you have 90 seconds.
Took me a little bit to get here. I appreciate your time. My name is Kara Hines. I live at 3398 Robin Lane in Moss Bluff. And the previous gentleman went through a lot of what I really wanted to make sure was said tonight, so I appreciate what they've already said. The major points that I really wanted to say is that Moss Bluff encompasses a total area of 16 square miles. This project is 5.7 square miles. That's a huge area of Moss Bluff. They're taking ITEP money to make this project. That means it's an industrial project. That means that that much of Moss Bluff will become an industrial zone. Please, give us time for the state to come out with their regulations so that we can abide by those regulations, so that we at least have a fair voice in this. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate not being redundant, so thank you so much. And who's
next,
the other person?
Madam Chair, is Donna Reynolds.
Miss Donna Reynolds?
Yes.
You don't mind making your way to the podium? State your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Donna Reynolds. I live at 2919 Blackmon Road. I live next to the Woodbrook Forest area, and you know, I was very blessed a couple years back when the privileged jury got some grants to raise a lot of property. We live in a flood-prone area. We're called bird nests for a reason, because really the tops of the trees sometimes is all you see. We're a flood-prone area. Everything in my area was so that the police jury granted me a huge grant and put my house 10 foot up in the air. Again, I'm gracious for that. But the alternative, the other side of that is all the flooding that is attached to this property. We live less than a quarter mile from the Calcasieu River. We have no idea at this point the long-term damage that if some of these panels were broke and did get into our waterways. These are bayous, canals. The canal that runs between me and Woodbrook is called Blackmon Bayou. We are right there at the Calcasieu River. Without more studies done to that environmental impact and to know whether or not our sportsman's paradise could remain that way. Think about how easy it was when the alligator eggs got ruined and we almost went extinct there. It could be something so simple as that to affect our area, simply because y'all already know it is a flood-prone area, and we're going to allow these panels to just float away into what most of us enjoy and live here for. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the applicant, we are going to add, is that 3 minutes, am I correct on that?
1 minute rebuttal.
A 1 minute
1 minute.
rebuttal to the applicant, if you'd like. If you have anything else to say, I know that the applicant had a little short of time, so if you need to, if you'd rather save your time, you can do that as well.
We'll save our time for questions, please.
Okay. It's up to you. If you're good. Okay, now we're going to move to questions. And so if the board has any comments or questions, and if there was someone out in the audience that you would like to bring back up, we can do that. So just please, yes, sir, Mr. Williams, Coach Williams.
Question for the applicant.
Okay. We have two questions for the applicant at this time. Coach Williams?
I'm very pleased to hear that you're working through two higher institutions, Magnesia and Sewell, to help these young people with employment.
Yes, sir.
My concern is if this zoning passes, what jobs are you guaranteed within the community, in that community? Is there any concern about helping employment for the people in that community, residents?
Look, the apprenticeships that I mentioned, the 45 to 55 apprenticeships that we're going to be working with Zoella on, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that those are sourced locally, and we'll put in a preference criteria there for residents of Topsy, of Bird Nest, and the project's not really in Moss Bluff, but Moss Bluff as well, because it affects that area. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And Mr. Forster, you might want to lift your microphone a little bit so we
okay,
can
I'm
hear a
sorry.
little bit. That's
I'm
okay. Okay, and there was another question, Ms. Winey?
Okay, so I tried to take notes so I could really be direct with you. I think the opposition was Mr. Tommy Cryer. He said that there were concerns that were not addressed by you all. So I wanted to know that there's been a lot of meetings, I think, that you all have held, because I know myself as board members, we've been contacted about meetings that we could attend to hear your presentation. So what I want to know is, did you meet with the residents, such as what Mr. Cryer was referring to? And from that meeting, the feedback you receive, how did that change your plan after you met with them? Or did you meet with them?
So 100%, we met with Mr. Cryer and other leaders of the community, folks who came before this board in August, as well as who spoke in Baton Rouge a couple days after that. We met with them actually in Mr. Guyman's office. He was kind enough to host us there. We talked a lot about the project. One of the issues was that there wasn't enough information available to back up what we were saying about the project. The maps were too hard to understand. So in response to what Mr. Cryer said, we put a ton of additional information on our website, detailed projects maps that you can click on and zoom in to detailed areas of the project and see how far back homes are from the improvements that we're placing. That earlier in the presentation, I mentioned that there are 0 homes within 300 feet of any solar panels. I think a lot of the concern that the community had were they were under the impression that the panels were going to be right up against their house, right up in their front yard, that they would see the project, and that's just not the case. Beyond that meeting, we've used every form of media available to us. We've sent postcards, we've sent mailers, we've spent thousands on advertising, on social media, on billboards and print advertisements with the American Press and other magazines here. We've sent text messages to everybody who's in a radius of the project. We've done everything we can to get the word out. You know, come to our website, call our phone number, come to our community hours at Moss Bluff Library. We were there 20 sessions, over 60 hours available for the community to come and chat with us and learn about the project. And a lot of people took advantage of that, and we appreciate that.
Okay, so since a lot of people took advantage of that, so again, specifically, what changes from those conversations, what changes did you make to your plan besides, I think you were saying the distance or something from the, from the property?
The plan that we submitted in August or prior to the August meeting, the design has not differed from that. So it's still the same plan. The modifications that we made to the plan were influenced by the meeting that we had at Gillis Elementary back in May, where we had started with the parish ordinance minimums, for example, being 50 feet from a property line. And based on the feedback that we got at Gillis Elementary prior to the submission of the plan, to y'all. We did everything that we could to increase the setbacks near homes. So if there's a property line near a residence, instead of being 50 feet, like the parish minimum, we increased that to 150 feet from the property line. If there's a home, the ordinance requires 300 feet to noise-making equipment. We know people don't want to hear it. So we made sure that any home is 300 feet from any equipment, including solar panels. We want the community to have assurances that they won't see it and they won't hear it. And I hope I'm addressing your question there.
Okay, I'll move on to my next question. So once the project is finished, completely finished, let's say everything passes, it goes through, you're allowed to, move forward with your project. How many permanent jobs will that solar farm employ? How many permanent positions would that be?
Sure. Beyond the dozens of people that we've employed during the development, beyond the 300 construction jobs for a year and a half, the long-term jobs at this site are, and the community has referenced it, it's somewhere around a dozen. The payrolls for the project, the labor payrolls for the project are just under $1 million a year. Those are the direct jobs, and there's a lot of indirect jobs that the power from this project will help continue to enable.
Any other questions or comments
I have a
for the
question.
applicant? Yes, sir, Mr. Dubois.
I'd like to address my question to Mr. Guyman, if that'd be okay.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
I have a question for Mr.
Okay, we have two questions for Mr. Guyman. Thank you, Mr. Forster.
Okay.
You may be seated
Thank
at
you.
this time until we need you back again, possibly. So, Mr. Guyman, at this time, Mr. Dubrock?
Brett, you had mentioned in all y'all's putting together stuff with the legislature, that y'all are trying to get a compensation package in there to homeowners. Is that due to the fact or the understanding that property values will go down when these things are around?
Yes, sir. To answer that question, we asked Dr. Greg Upton with LSU. I think he was mentioned earlier in someone's presentation. He is the head of the Center for Energy Studies at LSU. He's an expert on all subject matters dealing with renewable energy and oil and gas. And we rely on him all the time in the legislature for drafting of legislation, severance taxes, anything doing with energy. We went to him after the hearing that we had with, again, with Dr. Chambers and Dr. Upton, both in attendance and both speaking and answering questions. And we asked him if he would do a study on property values, because my opinion would be that if you live next to a solar panel, your property value is going to go down. It just seems like that would be common sense. But we heard that, I think from Dr. Chambers actually, that there was no loss in property value. So we wanted to work on that and investigate that a little further. We asked him to do a peer review study, and he came back with it. I think somebody said that it got emailed to you all, but it basically said within a mile from the property line of the solar facility, you're going to have a reduction in property value. So what we will do, what we will present in our package in the spring would be that you have to compensate. If you're going to move forward with the project, you're going to have to compensate all of the people that are in a mile radius of the line of the lease for the value of depreciation based on how far away you are. And that's, again, that's something that's being introduced. It's not passed yet. I don't know that it'll pass, but it is certainly going to be discussed and possibly part of the package.
Has the applicants, or maybe not these people, but any of them down the road, have they been responsive to that?
They don't know that yet.
Okay.
They just found out.
Okay.
But I guess because it's something that, look, we have a working group. We have 8 legislators, 4 from the House, 4 from the Senate, and we have 14, I believe last we checked today, we had 14 stakeholder groups on in the discussion with us. We call it a working group. So we have all the solar developers that are wanting to do business in our state. We have Entergy in that discussion as well, and then we have legislators, because again, our goal is to get it right and to make sure we do it better than anybody else, just like we did on carbon capture. And that's a big challenge because this is a very controversial issue. But I think this would be my opinion. What the industry will say is we will just move the setback voluntarily far enough to where it doesn't affect the property value of the home, or they would just have to compensate. that would be my guess. But I don't think they're gonna like it. I mean, I'll just be honest with you, their default position will be, no, we can't do that. But,
Okay.
and you had a
Thank
second
you.
question, or that was it?
That's it.
Okay.
Mr. Porsche?
Following that line of questioning, would that legislation have any clause for retroactive compensation for previously approved solar facilities where now, you know, homeowners are saying, hey, my property, I have proof that it's, would there be a retroactive grandfather clause?
That's a great question, and I think if you look at the letter from DENR that was sent out to the Municipal Association, the Police Jury Association, and I believe you all got a copy of it, I think it says in that letter that anyone that is not permitted yet would basically have to be in compliance with anything the legislature passes in the spring of 2025. So again, I'm not a lawyer, but my thought would be that anyone that is not under construction, does not have a permit from DENR currently to do a project, would have to comply with that. The ones who are already operational, I would think probably not. That would just be my guess. So.
And my next question, did I understand you will be authoring or
I am the
helping
author, yes.
of the state ordinance or
Yes,
laws?
I am.
And you stated that you would reach further, although you complimented our ordinance, so appreciate that.
It's good. It's probably
we did
one of
have
the best.
some input
It's probably
in that,
one of the best
along
in the
with-
state. Yes.
Yeah, along with
So-
our elected officials and the staff
Absolutely.
here. So I guess my question would be, can you give a specific example? Because this project is going above and beyond our ordinance, some of the offsets and setbacks and things. So could you give an example where you would reach further?
Wildlife and fisheries for one. So what happens now is, I think the parish requires some sort of a consultation or a wildlife habitat study of some kind. So hypothetically, the project would reach out to wildlife and fisheries and have a study done. But there's no mitigation. It's just a study. And what we would, and again, I can almost guarantee this will be in law, that wildlife and fisheries will be an arm of the permit process. So basically they will comment and they will say, hey, we have this tree, we have this bird, we have this animal, whatever those things are, and then this is what we would ask you to do to mitigate that. And then the project would have to decide whether or not, the developer would have to decide whether or not it is worth it and whether it still makes sense. So if there's a tree that is, that the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries wants to protect for habitat reasons, and that can't be removed, it may affect the project. I asked today specifically, would this kill a project? And they said, no, our goal is not to kill a project at all. It possibly could if there were so many things that had to be met that, you know, the project no longer made sense.
So the wildlife and fisheries would step into trees, things similar to mitigating wetlands.
It would be very similar to mitigation of wetlands. And by the way, I compliment them for doing the wildlife lanes because that is very important so that the wildlife can travel back and forth. I think the other thing will be the setbacks. We're going to have minimum setbacks that are going to exceed what the parish currently has.
Okay.
And you know, that would be one that I would say is most likely going to be in our package as well. And we will deal with noise also. We will have basically a zero noise at the property line. All those things are very doable. It's just that the setbacks may have to be a little further than, possibly be further than what the parish currently has.
Thank you, Mr. Porsche. Thank you, Mr. Guyman. Ms. Alicia, do you have a?
I do have a question for Mr. Guyman.
Oh, sure.
Is Wildlife and Fisheries involved in any other permitting right now?
Yes, they do. They are actually involved in every energy permit.
Okay.
Because everything we do in energy affects wildlife. And Department of Energy and Natural Resources have merged. So you have a Department of Energy and a Department of Natural Resources now as one. And the name of the department is the Department of Natural Resources. Their job is to protect our state property. And that's why all of this has to come into play. No one in the legislature is trying to kill solar, but we absolutely want to make sure that we get it right. And we are very, very concerned about projects in West Baton Rouge Parish that we have left to the locals to do. And by the way, I believe locals always do it better in most cases, but not on solar. And in West Baton Rouge Parish, we have an awful example of how a project can go wrong. And Entergy, I think that was on the board earlier, is the buyer of that. And my challenge to Entergy was, If you wouldn't buy from a project like that, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. But yet, you know, you do, and so we now have to set some sort of regulations. And by the way, it's the #1 issue in all of the Council of Southern States when they met this spring. The #1 issue was solar. So we're facing this all over the state. I mean, all over the country.
Thank you, Mr. Guyman. Any other questions from the board for Mr. Guyman before he's seated? Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Question for the staff. I've heard, you know, speaking to a lot of the opponents on this item, you know, the question I've been asked recurring is, why doesn't this require rezoning? You know, this looks commercial, looks industrial, light industrial. And if that were the case, our elected officials could join in and weigh in directly on an item that, you know, this so much contention and so much emotions, and I understand it. I've been on this board for 12 years. Maybe the SASOL was reached any level of this level of contention. But my question, I know when we did our ordinance, why doesn't this require rezoning when we settled in that agricultural zoning with exception would be appropriate land use for a solar facility?
Yes, sir, Mr. Porsche. So when, obviously, we've been approached, you know, by solar companies. It didn't start yesterday. I mean, we've been contacted by them for many years. And we knew it was coming. And so we express that to our police bureaus, or, you know, our groups. We have committees and things like that we express that to, and let them know that we really didn't have a land use category for solar. And
Right.
so we either needed to create something to allow us to accept an application, or even permit them by right somewhere.
Right.
And so they gave us the nod to move forward with that, and I instructed my staff. I said, let's research, look across the country, look at other ordinances, look at other communities, and see what they're doing. And basically what we saw is that there was, for these large solar type facilities, they need a lot of land. And so where in the parish do we have a lot of land? It's mostly in these agriculturally zoned areas.
Right.
And so, and we didn't, so the thought process was not to rezone large tracts of land in these rural areas to industrial, because they have a 30-year lifespan, and in that 30-year period, they can decommission. And we want it to go back to what it was. We want it to go back to that agricultural, you know, land, or whatever those landowners would like to do with it. And so it seemed like a better fit. And just by process of our ordinance, you have zoning exceptions and rezonings of property. Anytime you change the zoning map, that's what the planning, you know, that's what the police jury has to authorize.
That's right.
And so we didn't feel like a change of the map was necessary. We felt like this is a land use matter. That's what this board does. You look at land use matters for this parish, and that's what you're charged to do by the police jury. And it's not to cut the police jury out of participating in the process. I mean, they could certainly participate in that process, and we encourage that. But that's what the rule was made, and that's how they did it.
To avoid at the end of the 30 years, after decommission, you know, whenever the project would be decommissioned, now you have industrial zoning and now you have spot
and it could
zoning.
open
Anything under that category.
Yes, sir.
As of right.
Yes, sir. It could open the door to that kind of thing.
That's refreshes my memory.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Gabb can comment too.
Wes did a great job of it, and Wes' comment was hit the one thing I was going to add. Don't sell yourself short. You all have a lot of experience in land use matters, and this decision is properly placed upon y'all.
I think that explanation to a lot of the residents that were asking me. That was a very good answer. I do understand. I see both sides, but it is a protective measure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? We're going to ask the applicant if you'd like to come back up at this time and address any, of the comments that were made. Or if you have any other
We
things.
just do a 1 minute closing, is that what you're asking for?
Yes, sir. If
Is
he-
this to address,
Yes.
just for clarity first,
Yes.
please. Is this a 1 minute closing? Okay. We're going to try and use the time judiciously. If y'all will please entertain the property value, seem like the biggest concern here. We have 2 appraisers in the room, and I would ask that I designate most of that time to them to be able to address those key property value concerns. Okay. That's going to be Mr. Tom Hancock. I'll let him introduce himself. And he's the president of the Louisiana Society of Appraisers, as well as Nick Kirkland, I guess.
Hey, good evening. Tom Hancock, Tillman, Settlers Trace, and Lafayette. I'm the regional director of Murphy Appraisal Services, which is the largest appraisal firm in Louisiana. I serve as president-elect of the Louisiana chapter of the Appraisal Institute. However, I'm not representing the Appraisal Institute this evening. I was asked to review the Kirkland appraisal the consulting assignment, as the appraiser was from North Carolina and not local. Myself and both Keith Gossett, who's a local real estate appraiser, reviewed the report for its validity, for its methodology, and for its conclusions. And we agreed with what the Kirkland appraisal had. I'm going to defer to him.
And your time is up, but I'm going to let you finish your thought. If you can do it in like a couple of sentences, please finish your thought.
I have no further thought. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Okay. You may be seated. Thank you so much. Board members, do you have any other questions, comments? Is there anyone else that you need to ask a question to that maybe I might have overlooked or anything like that you feel like that you need answered? Okay. Well, at this time, Ms. Stephanie, we are going to do a roll call vote. And I do just want to let our board members know how proud I am of you, because this has been a lot of information coming to us through email, through phone calls, meeting with both sides, and we have listened to both sides. I want you guys to know that. As a board, it has been very, I don't want to say stressful, but it has been very eye-opening to how 2 different groups can have 2 different completely sides. And we did our best to go through all the information, and trust me, we have had a lot of email and a lot of phone calls on this, and we do appreciate that. And the applicant, we appreciate you guys working so diligently to explain your side and make sure that we understand so that we can make a good vote. So at this time, Ms. Stephanie, roll call vote.
Mr. Smith?
I abstain.
Mr. Vincent?
I abstain.
Mr. Williams?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ms. Winey?
No.
Ms. Galicia?
No.
Ms. Cobb?
Yes.
Mr. DeBrock?
No.
Ms. Hyatt? Mr. Porsche?
Yes.
Motion fails.
Motion fails. The next item on the agenda is to advise, excuse me guys, please refrain from clapping. I know you guys are excited, but we're going to try to get through with this meeting. The next item on the agenda is to advise that the next regularly scheduled planning and zoning meeting will be held on December 17th. I entertain a motion to adjourn. Ms. Galicia and Mrs. Winey.
I gotta go back to work. One more, but I gotta go back to work. I got a project. Well, actually, my current job, I applied for.
You're only short on one side, right?
Associate project manager, this Stephanie, cardiovascular, general medicine lead. When they came back, we also needed a clinical team lead. Clinical team manager is not a